Ask the Podcast Coach for September 7th, 2024.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means, hey, it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from theschoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. I'll apologize in advance. It's roof replacement Saturday for me. I have folks on my roof right now banging and nailing and scraping. Yeah, so
it's a big party, man.
I am a little ways away from them, and hopefully it's fairly quiet, but it is that supposed to be done yesterday. I was like, oh, great. And they're like, oh, no, Saturday. I'm like, Saturday morning's not great for me, but they don't care.
Yeah.
They're doing it today.
Well, what's amazing is how fast, like, that'll get done. It's you sit there and boom, all of a sudden you hear this pop, 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 and then you're like, okay, that was, it's it. So
yeah,
that's the good news.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what goes good with roofing? There's no transition here. A good old steaming hot cup of Java, and that, of course, that Java is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at. And Dave is hoping he changed the PDF here. Our friend Mark, yes, he did, over at podcastbranding.co. The beautiful thing of Mark is not only is he an award-winning graphic artist and he makes things just look so pretty, is he's also a podcaster. So that whole thing where you have to explain, it's kind of like an internet radio show. Yeah, you don't have to do that with Mark. And I know there are things like Fiverr, but you're not going to have a guy on Fiverr sit down with you one-on-one. You're not going to have a guy on Fiverr listen to your show. He's going to sit down and ask you, like, what's the goal of the show? He just really wants your brand to be in alignment with your content so that you get maximum impact. And it's not just artwork. It could be a full website. It could be a PDF. It could be a business card. Anything that you're going to put in front of your audience, Mark is going to make it look amazing, because you got to remember, they are going to see you before they hear you. And you don't want your first impression to be something that looked like it was done in crayon. You want it to look great. So when you're ready to look great, there's only one place to go, and that is, of course, podcastbranding.co.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week, the movies Rome, Geronimo, an American legend, and the great Northfield, Minnesota raid, which I've never heard of before. You can check those out. Always great content. Dan always does a great job. You can check those out today. And by the way, the single movie based on a true story is The Great Fire, which it looks like it's covering the Great Fire of Chicago. You can check those out today based on a true story podcast.com. Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
It's interesting how words get branded into your head. Because as soon as you said fire, I heard butthead go fire, fire, fire. It's like exactly. All right, well, we're gonna go. He said butt. And we're gonna go over to last week. Our buddy Ralph from AskRalphPodcast.com. It's a Christian finance show. He says, hey, for next week, the question should be, how do we change our mindset and stop worrying about downloads? So here's the thing. If you're not trying to get sponsors, well, then downloads. That's all I'm saying. It really is. It's a matter of, why do you want downloads? Now, part of it is your ego, right? I want to stand on the hill and listen to me, right? I get that. But we can really get, for me, the stat, I just saw somebody in Reddit this morning. In fact, let me throw that up here if I can find it. But people obsess over some of the strangest stuff that I'm just like, wait a minute. And I guess the one thing is just, again, going back to your why. Why are you doing this? And if the answer is, I want to get sponsors, then okay, pay attention to downloads. And if not, again, I'm not good. See, here's the thing is, if I say the naughty, well, let's find out. Jim, if I say, did you hear me just say the F word?
No.
Oh,
no,
good. So I can actually, All
Yeah,
right, it's good.
you
It's
can
supposed
bleed
to.
yourself out. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Jim, thoughts? How do you get out of the like obsessing over downloads?
Well, okay, but first of all, I don't think throwing them out is the right answer. Like they're important. They're an important stat. They are it gives you a good indication of where you're at. But I guess it depends on what your goal is with that. I mean, if your goal is to have monetization using the current the models that we have for ad revenue, dynamic ad insertion, let me say it that way, you're going to have a lot of downloads. And so
Lots.
if you're going that way and you have to have lots of downloads, those download stats are important from the sense that, okay, if you're not getting a lot of downloads, you're not getting a lot of revenue. So in that case, they do matter. Um, but you may be in a situation, and I think they're way more important when we compare them month over month or maybe week over week. I think that maybe that's a little too granular, but month over month or quarter over quarter to kind of see how are we doing? Where are we at? Now, it's just one stat, right? So don't get it's not the only stat that you should be
Right.
following. There's lots of other things you could be doing from both your website, if you've got Google AdSense on your website and you're tracking things that way, or if you've got affiliate programs and what kind of clicks are you getting through. I mean, our friends at Amazon do a really nice job. If you're an Amazon affiliate, they do a really nice job of tracking clicks and conversions. It's some of the things that go on over there. So could be another stat. So I wouldn't say throw out download stats altogether.
Right.
I think that's too radical, right? I think that's like, and I get why some people do that. They get frustrated and they're like, well, I don't want this to matter. Well, it does matter. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a stat but use it as a suite or use it as one stat in a suite of stats that you're using. But Dave, the overarching question on this always is, why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I trying to achieve on this thing? And then making sure the stats or whatever you're doing with that, whatever you're measuring, are lining up to the goals of what you're trying to do with it. And everybody's a little bit different. I'm a little hesitant. We do this as podcast coaches sometimes where we're like, we say words like always and you should never, or
Right.
like, stop saying those things because sometimes they do matter. Sometimes they don't. Rather ask the questions, what are you trying to achieve? That should be the very first question. And listen, if you're just having fun, yeah, maybe you don't have to look at your download stats and it doesn't matter, right? Maybe in that case, if that is your goal, you never have to worry about it. So I think that question, Dave, is the most important one is, why are we doing what we're doing, friends?
Here's another exercise you can do. Add 2 zeros. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're getting, I don't know, 800 downloads. Okay, add 2 zeros. Ooh, now I have to do math in my head. That would be 80,000. All right, if it was 800, 8,000, 80,000. Yeah. Okay, so you have 80,000 downloads. That's actually a ton more, but just add more numbers. So let's say I have 100 downloads and now you have 1,000. Okay, what are you going to do with those? So what? Like what's the end thing? And you're like, I don't know. And if you go, I guess I could get sponsors. Well, okay. My thoughts, it's just when it comes to sponsors, it's not the best way to make money with your podcast. Enjoy your $37.50 for that episode. But, and I'm not anti-sponsor because DR brings up a good point. Where'd she go? About what if you are a smaller show and you can then charge more money because I've got, men who are 50 that are paralyzed from the waist down. Okay. Now I can charge because you've got a product for that person, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm not anti-advertising. I sure sound like it. I hate when people go, I'm starting a podcast and I want to get ads because I want to quit my day job. And I'm like, that is a long road to go. And then yes. Jody says, I think it's more about knowing or having some idea whether or not people are resonating with your content. Yep, that's it. And Chris said the same thing. It's about kind of going, are we headed in the right way? And I get that. But look, I realize when you first start your podcast, you are checking stats on an hourly basis. Ooh, I'm up to 14, and I get that because you just want to make sure it's working and things like that. But yeah, Jody says get very specific sponsors who are signed very closely with their show and its audience. And then it has nothing to do with downloads either. Really, it's about having a passionate audience. Yeah, that's when you have a niche audience and you're not doing, BetterHelp. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one makes me scratch my head. Randy says my media host does not offer stats by default. What are we paying them for again? You have to opt in for OP3 stats, which is fine. I don't look at them very often, so I just think it's odd. I think he's using RSS Blue. But now on the other hand, RSS Blue makes it really easy because he's doing the M2H2music.com show. That's Randy Black. And if you want to do a music show with the streaming sats and the switching wallets and all that 2.0 stuff, and in that case, you probably don't care about downloads. You're watching your sats income. So, yeah. And then talking about ego, Chris says, I'm in the top 0.5% on listen notes. No one cares ever. Yeah, that's when I hate that stat. When I hear somebody go, I'm interviewing Jim Collison today. He's a top 0.5% podcaster. That's when I tend to go, but there's a time when I do use listen notes. I don't do this, but I go, okay, that would work. Because we know listen notes measures like millions of podcasts, of which 70% are dead. So congratulations, you beat that WordPress podcast from, 2002. But if somebody said, where can I see which shows are bigger? Like I only want to appear on big shows, which right there makes me think you have an attitude maybe problem. Like I only want to appear on the biggest shows. But if that would be a way, as skewed as their measurement is, it is consistent. And so in theory, a 0.5 top podcaster would have a bigger audience on listen notes than one that's in the top 15% or something like that. So it's, but to me, I'm just like, I don't look at the size of the audience. I look, does that fit my topic? Because I'd rather reach 10 people who are thinking about doing a podcast than be on a show with 100 listeners and they're talking about, fish food. I'm like, yeah, that's, there might be one person in there that does that. I want to share one thing on the screen here real quick. This guy, just talk about getting sidetracked. This guy on Reddit, is your subscriber to download ratio? I'm hoping to compare metrics on what an average percentage of subs, meaning subscribers, to download an episode is. I recently started podcasting in May. Remember how we talked about new people tend to get a little upset on this in May, and I'm tracking what percentage of my subscriber downloads an episode. The percentage of my subscribers download an episode. Okay. The data source I'm using is Buzzsprout subscribers, Apple and Spotify. The calculation is I get my 30-day download numbers from Buzzsprout. I calculate my average daily subscribers, ADS, by adding up each daily's individual subscriber count and dividing by 30. For example, if I have 3 days worth of subscriber data, totaling 45 subscriber, then my average daily subscriber, whatever ADS stood for, average daily subscribers would be 15, to which I'm not even going to read the rest of this. I just told you there's a better way to do this. And that's if the goal is, I'm trying to see if people like my content, the number one way, ask your audience, just like, hey, now granted, a lot of times you ask your audience and you just get crickets, but just look at average completion rate. Because when I saw that, my brain hurt just looking at it. I was like, and then you take this, divide by 2, and then, multiply it by pi. And I was like, wait, this is getting way too nerdy, even for me. And I'm like, look, I love math, but I was like, that just sounds like the time spent figuring out your average DS could just be spent hanging out with your potential audience and doing that. So that to me was just like focusing on downloads squared to throw in a math joke. I was just, so anyway, Jim, I looked like
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're getting some value out of those sound effects
That's it.
today. I really like it.
Yeah.
I really like it. We've spent the last year talking a lot about value for value, right? And that always comes in the terms, I shouldn't say always, because I just said we shouldn't say words like that. Oftentimes that comes in the terms of this value for value where you're getting paid by the listener, right? We think about it in those terms, but I think you can also think in value for value in terms of your advertiser. And when you're giving your advertiser value in your podcast, and they're seeing that value in through purchases or through engagement on their site. I mean, this is why discount codes work. This is why, put in the code here at checkout, or let them know you heard us here. That's why those things matter, right? It's because an advertiser who spends $50 with you and makes $500 is going to say yes to advertising all the time. They're never going to stop, right? They're not, nobody turns away a 10 time value, right? And even a 2 times value is a great return on their investment right now. So make sure if you have advertisers, Dave, I see this all the time. I see podcasters treating their ads like trash. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, I got to do another ad. No,
Yeah.
not sorry. These advertisers are partners with you right now. If you're in the review space, if you're in that space of that influencer space, you got to be careful in that space on how you do this, right? Your advertisers, and then talking about the content, the stuff they're giving you to, right? That's a whole other conversation, right? But I see podcasters trashing or just not giving their advertisers value, and then wonder why their advertisers walk away. We complain for a lot of years. Leo Laporte, who would do 3-minute, he'd sell a 30-minute spot, and he'd do 3 minutes on it. He would give them great value. The odds are that's in a lot of ways, that's why they kept coming back. Now, some of them would go for a while and they drop off. Advertiser's not going to do it forever. Eventually they're going to meet everybody in the space. Sometimes it doesn't pay to keep going forever, right? You do it for a while, you step out, you come back in. But I think that value for value conversation also needs to play in. And how are you treating your advertisers? Are you giving them value? And you should ask them the question, what are you see? Am I doing the job that you're paying me to do? Because that as a commercial, that's what they're doing. They're paying you to represent them, right? That's part of the advertising gig that we're in here. Are you representing them well? Are you doing a good job that they're feeling value out of that? So listen, I know that's not the most popular opinion because some of you have a very negative opinion of ads playing on shows, but it's another value for value proposition. I would say.
And you have to be careful when you get into the Patreons, the Supercasts, because that's where you're like, well, if you sign up on Supercast, then you don't have to hear those ads. And it just sounds like ads. And you're like, meanwhile, the guy's like, didn't I just give you a couple $100? Like, what's the deal on that? Jim Harold says, I'll include myself in this. I think almost anyone who gets into podcasting really has a little bit of a look at me syndrome. I know I have it. That is if we're all being honest with ourselves. Absolutely. And then he says the great thing, the key is not to be obsessed. And I think that's it with downloads as well. Uncle Marv says Supercast has a unique listener stat, which Jody then said, yep, so does Captivate. So that comes in. And Jim, here's the beautiful news. I'm going to put this on my business card. Top 2.5% on listen notes.
Nice.
So you can
rock.
charge.
We're awesome.
I am beating that show about, emus from 2010 that had 4 episodes. Congratulations on that. Tom says the ads are content. If you care about your content, you care about your ads equally. Or are you just respecting audience and advisor? Here's a novel idea. Can you go into your Apple Podcasts and see where people are skipping the ads? Here's a solution to that. Do better ads. You know what I mean? Like that's
I agree.
Tom makes a great point. People go, well, if I add ads to my show, I'm going to lose my listeners. And he's like, BS, man. It's like, that's where you're like, no, because if one ad lost your listener, they really weren't that. When I was a musician, I would partner with bands that played the same stuff we did, our competition. And people were like, well, why are you like, we'd bring them up on stage when we were playing, if they were, had a night off. And likewise, if we walked in, cause we had a Friday off and they were playing, hey, we're going to bring up the Sugar Daddies. All right, here we go. And, people always say, well, aren't you afraid that like people are going to go see that band instead of you if you're both playing some night? I'm like, hey, if they're going to see them, we're not doing our job. Then we need to be more entertaining than them. And of course, the look at me factor was like, we like these guys, but we kind of think we're better. And so make your ads better. I know I'm working on that, but I have a long way to go on making ads that people are, I think it's Pod Save the Queen or Pod something on the left, whatever it is. It was Obama's old speechwriters do a show. I think it's Pod Save
Pod Save America.
America. Yeah, something.
Yeah, Pod Save
Something
America.
saving something pod, yeah. But their ads were so entertaining that when they went live and they're selling out thousands of seats in a theater, people are like, hey, come on, man, do Blue Apron. And they're like, no, you guys paid $30 for the ticket. We're not doing ads. So come on, Hello Fresh, And they're like, okay, I guess we're doing an ad. So it was really because they did them in an entertaining way. Just don't be Tom Segura. He went a little too far with the McDonald's ads and started talking about sex toys, and McDonald's did not appreciate that. Yeah, so
no.
make them yourself.
You don't want to mix metaphors in your ads.
Yeah.
You gotta be really, really, Dave, you said don't be obsessed. And I actually, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on that.
Holy cow. Okay.
I think you should listen about your podcasting, about all the things that you do, be obsessed. Like, I think sometimes we came off this stats conversation saying, don't obsess about your stats. If it drives you to success to be a better podcaster by obsessing about your stats, for God's sakes, obsess about your stats. Like, whatever makes you better, right? Even if it makes you a little uncomfortable, which is not a bad thing in what we're doing here. But whatever makes you better at what you do with your craft, do it. And if being obsessed about, in a healthy way, right? I'm not encouraging anyone to stop eating or to not sleep or never shower or any of those kinds of things. That's not what I'm talking about here. But I do think our podcasts are better when we're a little obsessed about them, and when we care about them, and when we want them to be better, and when we care about them. So I don't want people to hear like, oh, laissez-faire, whatever. You can just kind of do this on halftime. No. None of these things happen. None of the successful, however you want to see that in life. That doesn't happen by people who are just like, yeah, I'll do it for an hour on Saturday. They're obsessed about it. And so be a little obsessed, I guess is what I'm saying. Be a little obsessed.
Yeah, that's true. Because that kind of goes in with the whole, you need to have passion for your topic. And if you have passion for your topic, then that's going to naturally filter into. But like the guy that was doing math to figure out the average number of subscribers on Tuesday, if there's a full moon, that's maybe a little obsessed. That's a little crazy.
No, right. Well, that's obnoxious. But the checking your stats, even on a daily basis, if you're checking them daily, and that is giving you some drive to make better show notes, or it's giving you drive to get better guests, or that's driving you to have better content, or to maybe practice your ad reads, right? Or to contact a listener. If that daily stat rhythm is giving you the motivation to do something, for God's sakes, check your stats every day. If it's motivating you to do something, do it. Now, if you're checking your stats and then you're like, oh, I'm worthless and I can't do anything. And then if it's disabling you from doing any of those kinds of things, if it's stopping you, or if you're spending all the time that you have checking stats and not doing anything else, then stop checking your stats.
Yeah,
right. It's not that hard.
That's where I say you cross the line when you're spending hours on your stats. I'm like, no, spend hours making your content. Tom says, by the way, if you haven't bought Tom's book, the audience is listening. I'm here to tell you it's required reading for every podcaster. It's amazing. Make your ads better. This is the truth. Take agency in your show. If people drop out of your show on a host read ad, they're dropping out on you because you didn't provide quality. Amen, my brother. It really is tricky. Daniel's in the house here. I remember when the New Media Expo purchased the podcast awards, and the host started doing a parody of a live ad read during the ceremony, but then I was horrified to realize it wasn't a parody. I remember that vaguely. I remember they were talking, I think it was Me Undies, if I remember right. But yeah, they started sticking ads in, yeah. Oh, you guys are funny. Here we go. For the folks that obsess and don't want to obsess, I wonder if the hosting platform can turn those numbers off. Nope. So you don't see them. That'd be nice. I remember a developer created a code to turn off unsubscribe. Yeah, it's just, this is where I'm going to tie this into football. So it sounds like I am taking a tangent, but here's the thing. When I live in Ohio, the Cleveland Browns moved away. It was some of the best years of my life because I didn't have to worry about football. And football started this Thursday in America. And I watched the first game, and it was a really good game. And you wondered who was going to win because there's that whole storytelling thing about, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. Sports has that built in. And if it's a close game, you watch. And then the NFL is the only one because it's a gazillion. I would love to know how much of the gross national product of America is the NFL. It's insane, but they've now they're making it hard to get their content. So I actually spent $7 last night to watch a game that was only available on Peacock. And I felt dirty afterwards. Like I needed a shower. Like they made me do something I didn't want to do. And then I didn't even watch the game because I was on the phone for most of it. But it's one of those things where I'm feeling myself getting sucked in. Right. I'm like, hey, if I start watching this now, and then because it is fun if you watch the whole season and now you know the whole story of the season. And oh my gosh, I was there when they were, 0-4. And now look at them, they're in the playoffs. I get that. But in the grand scheme of what do you want to do with your life? Football, yes, it's an escape. And sometimes we need that. But is it going to help me grow my podcast? Which one's more important right now? An escape and relaxation, or growing my podcast, or I don't know, spending time with your kids or, your spouse or things like that. But I'm just like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, football shouldn't be a high priority for me right now. And yet I feel and I know why I'm getting sucked in because there's lots of stories, is Taylor going to be there? That whole 9 yards. So realize sometimes bringing it back then to podcasting is staring at your stats. Yes, there's always a benefit of that because you can see, is this working or not? And as Jim said, if you see that it's not working, be ready for that. Same thing. When you see how far people are listening to your show, I was working with someone and their numbers were not great. And when they saw that stat, they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, it means most people are tuning out fairly quickly, and you have to be ready for that. But for me, that's as much as you hate to get that information, at least you know where you're starting from. And in some cases, you can only go up from here. So just kind of step out of yourself and go, am I getting sucked in? And because I noticed, I'm like, oh, I'm getting sucked into football. Look at this. We're only 2 days in. And, the Browns game is on Sunday and they're playing the Cowboys. And so the one thing I do, just to the whole sports thing, never watch it live. And I was watching it live. Oh, because you can watch a football game in about 15 minutes. We need to skip, next play, skip. So I was like, not only am I watching football, but I was watching it live. And I was like, no. So just be careful, especially with the obsession. DR just said it
can be overwhelming. Well, Dave, but in there could be a case though where the folks that you're hanging out with, or even in your podcast, where knowing that football information could actually be beneficial.
Yeah,
right?
That's
so. Again, not to bash the NFL. By the way, the answer to your question, the U.S. GDP last year or 2022, $25 trillion. Okay. The NFL's revenue, $25 billion. So a trillion is a trillion, 1,000 billion.
Million. No, you're right. Billions. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of money.
Let's not do the math. It's a lot, but it's not as much as you think, right? It's one of those kinds of things you're like, yeah, 20 billion, that's a lot, but 25 trillion, that's a lot more too. Yeah. I think to your point, I mean, does that mean you need to, as a podcaster, Does that mean I need to just write off the NFL or write off sports because I don't have time for that stuff? Well, maybe, but in most cases, like you said, figure out a way. You might need it for life, just to have conversations at work, right? Whatever. Find a way to make that reasonable, for you. Like you said, in this particular case, YouTube has the actual recaps of every game that you can watch, right? And you can go in there and watch those shows. Watch the best of those. It's even easier than recording it and fast forwarding it. You can just watch the best of it in 10 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes, something like that. So figure out what works for you in that, but be reasonable. I think sometimes we swing too far one direction or the other. And you kind of say, well, no, you do need some entertainment time, Dave. And that Chiefs Ravens game was awesome. Now, I did a podcast during the Chiefs Ravens game. That's my Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central is when I do my podcast. And yeah. So, while that game was on, I had it up on another screen and I was podcasting during it. So sometimes you can multitask.
Yeah. Boy, if you bring up the NFL, the chat room goes crazy. So yeah, it's somebody said if you go and the NFL YouTube recap is about 15 minutes of the game's highlights. That's true. And yeah. My favorite is if you think we have billionaires who have a team of millionaires that are commented on by other millionaires, and eventually gets down to the fans who are like, hey man, we paid that guy a lot of money. If you ever want to do live stuff and you bring people on live, like in this case, askthepodcastcoach.com/question, just be ready because you have to cut some people off because I love sports radio. They're like, Tom from Poughkeepsie, what do you think? Oh, that guy's a bum. Why are we paying that quarterback so much money? I told you shouldn't have hired him. Well, he is making a lot of money, and, that one guy did drop the pass. So, that's the way it is. And then Tom comes back with, that guy's a bum, man. We shouldn't. He has one string, and that's all he's got. So you have to remember that if you are bringing people on live, at times you have to go, hey, thanks so much for the call, and moving on. We've had a few of those here on this show. But
by the way, 1 billion divided by 1 trillion, 0.001. That's the math on that. Just so we're clear on what that number. It's pretty small.
It's small. It just seems huge. So
what $20 billion a year? Now it's revenue. It's very expensive to run the NFL, right? That's just a revenue number. It'd be interesting to see. It'd be almost impossible to figure out what their profit was on that. But you just think of revenue from that. It's still a pretty small percentage. But for us, like you said, these are billionaires. I mean, the Hunt family that owns the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, he's worth billions. So they pay those guys millions, but the amount, I mean, it fills stadiums. It sells ads.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting. And how do we know it's interesting? Now, may not be interesting to you, the listener, right now, this morning, or if you're listening to this, you're like, I hate football. Okay, that's cool. But there are a gigantic number of people in the United States, and now growing, Friday night's game, Dave, the one that you paid $7 for on Peacock, was in Brazil, right? They're doing games in London. They've got games going on in Mexico City. They're expanding. The NFL has realized, hey, maybe we have a good product here that could translate to other locations, and so they're testing it out in these various places.
How do you grow?
You can do that too.
Yeah. How do you grow your podcast? Getting in front of people who aren't, consuming your content that should. And that's basically what the NFL is. It's like, hey, yes, you have that thing with the round ball and the black and white, patches on it, but there's another type of football, and, come watch giant men give each other concussions. It's great fun. So
it is kind of gladiator. It is. Remember on Saturday mornings when they had a gladiator show.
Oh, there was
American Gladiator. Is
American Gladiator? There's a great documentary on that on Netflix, I think it was. And those guys did not get paid at all. And the guys that ran it, they finally like, hey, you made me a celebrity. Now you have to pay celebrity prices. And they're like, oh, you're fired. And I was like, yeah. And they were all doing all sorts of drugs to make themselves look the way they looked. And yeah, it's a great lesson in showbiz. and make sure you get somebody who understands a contract before you sign it. Yeah, that's all that fun stuff. But you brought up pricing, which leads us to, if I can find my button here. That's right. We're switching topics, everyone. It's time to talk about our good friends over at StreamYard. Now, if you haven't heard, StreamYard was bought by something like Bending Spoons,
Bending
which
Spoons,
is
I think.
which is the company that bought Meetup, which also bought OneNote. Right? Is that the no? Is that it?
Evernote.
Evernote, yeah, something note. And Evernote, the reason I left Evernote is they like raised their prices way too much. And Jim, you got some emails from StreamYard this week.
Yeah, not speculating. We know we now
Yeah.
know with the new purchase. We've been talking about this for a little while. With the current rollout of dark mode, rounded corners on the video, now you can get 4K local recording, which sounds pretty cool if you want that kind of quality, and a few other enhancements on the back end. As of the end of September, for those of us who are on the monthly plan, your price is going up. And if you were, listen, I started StreamYard almost the day they opened, was on their free plan for a long time, then took advantage of the $10 plan. Thank you, Dan and Gage, for your generosity back in those days. And I've been on the $10 plan forever. So I have gotten, just hear this, I've gotten an enormous amount of value out of StreamYard. Okay, enormous. We use them at work. We pay for their business plan that way. But $10 was what I was paying. The new bill, $45, Dave. 10 to 45.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but let's keep this in context, right? If I wanted the same plan on Riverside, it's 35. And I could, if I go from monthly on StreamYard to annual, they'll give me $10 off. And so that's $35. All of a sudden, when you think, was I underpaying for my service before and just getting a value out of it? Yeah, I mean, go to 10 to 45 is a huge jump. But then when you start thinking about all the other services, so to speak, I'll bring Riverside in because I've been looking at Riverside. If I wanted to use their plan, I'm at $35 for that same. And Riverside does a thing where you can just use their recording, or you can pay $10 extra, right? So I could use their $25 plan, but it's going to cost me $10 extra to stream to YouTube. Well, I'm more interested in the streaming part of YouTube than I am going to the recording stuff. For me, I just rip it off of YouTube to produce it anyways. I don't care about all that. And that's just me, right? So yeah, that's a huge jump. So if you were on the $10 plan before, and check your junk mail if you haven't gotten it. I got that email this week. The same day at work, I got the same email, except it was written a little bit differently. And it wasn't like, I mean, I'm not saying they were mean to me saying going from 10 to 45. It was a well-written email, right? It just said, hey, thank you, but whatever plan you had before is now going to be 45. The email I got at work as a business on the business side was, hey, we are, we are going to be raising prices, but we're going to grandfather you in. It's a little kinder. Like it was a little more gentle. It was a little more, we're going to work with you. And which is great. Well, I'm going to renew my plan. It's coming up here in October. We buy annually at work as opposed to month to month. Well, I'm not going to do it that way. And I will now go annual just to get the savings. I mean, $10 was just a great deal. And I kind of wish I'd have bought the $10 annual because that was even cheaper, but I didn't. So we'll go at work. We'll just renew that and go forward with it. It's reasonable. It's actually what we paid before. We're going to plus just a little bit. And then we're going to get all the new features. And so it's funny, the difference in perspective, Dave. I lived on both. I'm literally living on either side of the fence as both a solo podcaster who does a podcast. It's not gigantic revenue. I do it for fun. It's kind of a hobby thing. Listen, even $35 a month's probably a little more than I want to spend on that kind of podcast, where that same pricing, again, it's a little bit more. We're more in that $50 plan over there on StreamYard which is going to, I think, 79 or 89, something like that.
Yeah.
That plan. At work, no, actually, because we have multiple people using it. We have a Teams account. We do some things with it. It gets tons of use. It's very valuable to us at work. Yeah, we're gonna, and even
Yeah.
that's pretty cheap. That price, I think 600 is what we're gonna pay a year, something like that, 700. That's a super big value for us at work for all the things that it does. So, just an interesting difference of opinion. If you're on StreamYard today, you better check. You might want to go out and check. For those of you who are on annual plans, that annual plan is gonna hold for you until it renews, and then you're gonna get the new pricing at renewal. So just know when you're renewing, a type deal. So because of this, Dave, I'm really looking. We talked a little bit about this on Home Gadget Geeks. I had Jay Franzi on the show on Thursday, and we talked about, and I'm kind of looking at three options, and I want to spend a little bit of time with you on this.
All right.
I'm definitely looking at Ecamm because, and these are my criteria is about $20 a month, and all these are under $20, right? So we're looking at Ecamm, which you and I have tried here, and so I've seen a little bit of that experience, but I'm going to move to Ecamm on the free plan next and try that for a month or however long their free plan lasts for. I'll try that on my show. We're also looking at Restream. I forget who it was, but somebody encouraged me to, maybe it was Jay, to look at Restream as an option. They're $19 a month on their plan. And I will probably give them, by the way, Dave, you and I had a question on Restream's page. It wasn't clear how long you could stream to YouTube for or whatever. I went into their chat, their support chat, asked that question, and they're like, "Oh no, you can stream as long as you want in those." So awesome, good for you, Restream, for having that. And it was AI based chat to give me the answer that I needed. That was pretty awesome. I got that right before the show started. And then EVMux, another one you and I have looked at in the past. They're also $16 a month, and gives me all the options that I need. Those three give me all the options that I need to do Home Gadget Geeks. It just will kind of depend on kind of where we land after we test each one of them.
Yeah, when I was working at Libsyn, we used Crowdcast, which I think had more marketing, like follow up with people later after the thing. But in terms of the actual live streaming tool, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't like stellar. Where when we switched to Restream, I loved Restream because I could share my screen and it would put me as a little picture, like picture in picture kind of thing. So it wasn't death by PowerPoint quite as much. And I could see the chat room at the same time. And that I really love because I could see as I'm going through my slides, oh, wait a minute, Stephanie has a question or something like that. So I could stop as I'm on this. So I thought that was always really cool. I know Jason Bryant from Matt Talk Online, he uses Restream, and it's just, they call it Restream because it used to be like Todd right now. Todd Cochran has been saying he's on Starlink, but for anybody that is bandwidth challenged, you would basically connect to Restream, and then Restream would then, I know, they're clever. It would then Restream whatever you're doing. So if you were doing a webinar or whatever, it would send it to YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook. And then I think depending on how many places you stream to, like I think on the $19 plan, you got to go to 3. And then if you went to another one, you could go to 5 places. So,
and I don't care about any of those things. Like the Restream $19 or $16 plan, is it $19 plan would work out just perfectly for me.
Yeah. And then you could be like Jeff. Jeff C says, "Hey, I use Ecamm and Restream at the same time." Look at him, multitasking, to go out everywhere. Helps with bandwidth, upload speeds, plus Restream pairs is great for guests to go live to their platforms. Yeah, that's something that was cool. When I was on Jeff's show, he gave me a link and it automatically went to like my YouTube channel and a bunch of other places. So it's again, how do you grow your podcast? Get your stuff in front of people who should be listening or watching your stuff, but don't. And it goes that route. So it'll be fun to watch. I thought EVMux was interesting. It was kind of a cross between Ecamm and StreamYard. Now, they don't give you separate channels, and that might be a deal breaker for some people. Restream, I believe, gives you separate channels. And why that's a kind of a big deal is if Jim had a dog barking, or I don't know, if the roofers really started going crazy right now and we heard all this, well, I could mute Jim's channel while I'm talking and fix it in the mix, as they say. So, oh, I didn't know this. Chris says StreamYard has pairs as well. Guests can share on 2 of their channels. I did not know that. So, pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
they're all kind of coming. It's like host providers, right? It's like podcast host providers. They've all kind of just become the same for the most part. Pricing may be a little bit different, a few things here, a few things there. The older ones, not naming any names, but the older ones where I used to work with have a lot of technical debt that they've got to overcome sometimes to get some of the newer features that exist out there. But for the most part, and some of the newer ones don't have some of the things that the older podcast hosts have because they've been doing it for so long. So let me be fair there. But I think we're getting to a point where these streaming services, we're going to get down to 3 or 4 or 5 in the next couple years, that all are basically the same at kind of all at the same prices. Boy, StreamYard had no problem matching. Would I say the highest price? Maybe the highest price of the current streaming options that are out there, right? They definitely bought this for a value play. Value for them, not for
right.
us. Right. And that's business. Like, that's what they do. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have not been out there combing the interwebs for the backlash for all the podcasters who were on that $10 plan, and I'm sure there are quite a few who are now screaming, screaming, this is a foul, and what are you going to do about it? We know, you and I saw this drama happen at Otter.ai, who said, hey, we're going to raise prices and lower the minutes that you get on your plan. And I think they thought everybody would just take that laying down. And there was such a backlash at Otter that they were like, oh, just kidding. Sorry. You still get the 6,000. I think we're on the $10 plan, or I think so. You're on the $10 plan at Otter? You think still?
Yeah, because I remember for yearly it was like $99, and I'm like, okay,
yeah.
But
that's what I pay, $99 a year. Yeah.
Well, somebody brought up Canva, and as much as we love AI, look, it'll wipe your butt for you, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, great, but if you listen to like the No Agenda show and some of these other shows, they're talking about the actual expense of running a large language model, whatever. That takes some electricity and power and computers. And so when somebody goes, like, I know Captivate is announcing something later this month, and a lot of people are like, oh, I bet they're adding AI. And I'm like, I kind of hope not, because Canva is raising their prices. I'm not sure how much. Somebody said they thought they heard like by 300%, something like, they're going to triple their, and they have said one of the reasons it's going up is because we added AI, to which I want to go, I raise my hand to give me a plan option where I don't use it, because I don't use it. I don't need somebody with 7 fingers on my artwork. Thanks.
It's getting better, Dave. That's getting better.
Yeah.
Listen, we're in the AOL CD days of AI where remember they would give it you can sign up and get free internet as long as you sign up for 2 years, and give away your firstborn and some. Remember those crazy days of it? And it even got so bad they were giving away computers, right? We're kind of with these AI services, they are definitely losing money when you think about what they're paying to have this AI run. They're definitely losing money, but everyone's so afraid of not being the leader in AI. They're giving most of it away for free. You should absolutely be ready for future costs to go up if you are heavily invested in the AI space for all these things that are doing it. It's not sustainable for these companies to keep giving it to you for nothing. So, now in the current context of StreamYard, they're not using any AI. They're just taking advantage of the current market environment for this. But those companies like Canva and some of the other ones, I think you're going to start seeing they're either going to go out of business or they're going to have to raise their prices. It's just the way it's going to have to be. It's too expensive.
But that's one of the reasons why I think Otter wanted to raise their price, because it used to be transcription,
For sure.
and here
For
it
sure.
is, and now it's transcriptions. Oh, now I can ask it questions and all sorts of stuff. Well, that's the old, AI
Yes,
stuff.
it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Listen, I've been messing with the Auphonic transcription piece too, and I think we're actually going to also at work move to Auphonic. I'm working on that right now for their transcripts and away from Otter. But they that's got they're sending that off to open the OpenAI API or something to get that thing run, and it's coming back. They're paying that for you, right? You think, oh, it's free. Well, no, not really. They're paying for it. Those guys are paying for it for you. So just keep your eyes open for in all this AI stuff for as we figure out how to get. I mean, boy, Nvidia is not doing well just because they're selling, GPUs to gamers and even crypto. The AI piece on this they are buying. I mean, the chips that they make are perfect for AI. So, I mean, now Nvidia lost a whole bunch of value in the last 2 weeks, so some of that's was unrealistic and has been pulled back. But in that space, don't get too dependent on these free versions of AI for too long. You'll probably need to start ponying up for those here pretty quick.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. And I'm with Chris Stone said, can people please quit using AI as a marketing tool when it's not AI? It's just, to me, it just seems like, look, here's a kitchen timer now with AI. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah, when I hit this button, it guessed 20-minute timer. I don't know but it just seems like everything. Frosted Flakes now with AI. There, it's like enough with that, because it's like podcasting. It used to be like, ooh, wow, Whirlpool started a podcast, and now it's like, who doesn't have a podcast? It's like it's different if you don't. So, but what's not artificial is our awesome supporters. They're real. It's real support, and you can be an awesome supporter by going over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and support the show. The show is also brought to you by some guy named Dave Jackson at the School of Podcasting, where you can get courses, unlimited coaching, and a really awesome community. This is the best way to wake up. I woke up this morning and some guy who's going to do a show about old Western guns just joined the School of Podcasting. So I'm looking forward to working with Andy. And you can use the coupon coach when you sign up, and that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you go to askthepodcastcoach.com, that's Podpage. And hey, if you were a Podpage user and you hated that you couldn't delete the messages that came in from the contact form, you can do that now. So for all you inbox zero people that were freaking out, that's a new feature that was just added. And we're always adding features that people send in. So go check out Podpage at podpage.com, or if you want to use my affiliate link, try podpage.com. And I can't get the slide to go. There we go. Right now, we were talking about Ecamm. I love Ecamm. I won't lie and say it's not a learning curve. It just works completely different than any other program that you've ever used. And once you get it, you got it, and it's good. So I love Ecamm. Go to askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm. And hey, if you need more Jim Cullison, and who doesn't? Nice Princess Diwave. Just go to theaverageguy.tv, or if you want to be crazy, you can go to homegadgetgeeks.com. And it's time for our featured supporter of the week. So when we come over, will it be Shane over at Radio GDR or Ross Brand? Will he make it a three-peat? Craig at AI Goes to College. We're going to do a shuffle, just so if anybody...
The drama of the spin.
So here we go. Round and round it goes. And this week's featured supporter is it? Oh, it is. I mentioned him earlier. Shane Whaley from Radio GDR. Check that out if you're interested in, and I always forget which side of Germany it is. But it's a show about Germany. He's Shane's from everywhere. He's in the US, but he's from the UK, and he likes, I cannot remember which Which one was the Nazi one? See, this is where this is
Well,
this is your American education. If it's not about America,
neither.
yeah,
Neither. One
yeah,
was the West, and one was the East for a while, right? One was a
yes.
Soviet bloc country. The other was
So whichever
there
one you
was
couldn't get into, he's doing a
that
show
would be
about
East
that.
Germany. East
Yeah, there we
Germany.
go.
I think that
So
those are East German colors. Yeah.
and thank you, Shane, for being an awesome support. Deeply appreciate that. And I'm hoping this will work because I can't see my buttons anymore. There we go. If you accept, are you seeing my slides or are we
Yeah.
still seeing the wheel of?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So if
No,
this
we're good.
show saves your time, saves your money, saves you headaches, or does it just keep you educated? Well, then you might consider giving some of that value back. We talked about value for value. And yes, here we go. Randy is helping us out. East Germany was under Soviet control. So thank you so much. Now, if I listened to Radio GDR, I would know that. So I need to go listen and get my education up. But yeah, you can be an awesome supporter by going over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And we will move on. Here is a fun question. This one says, hey, can I make host read ads on my podcast using affiliate links? To which I say, yeah. He says, I know it's probably an incredibly dumb question. Well, there are no dumb questions, just dumb people. Wait, no, that's not how that goes. Just kidding. But I was at Podcast Movement last week, and one of the sessions mentioned using affiliates as a method of monetizing my podcast. Yes, kids, when we talk about Ecamm and EV MOOCs, and let's see, Jim mentioned Alphonic.com. All those bad boys have affiliates, and yes, I have signed up for all of those. Now, I don't just sign up for stuff because they have an affiliate program, but if they do and I like the product, absolutely. That's called free money, kids. And then it occurred to me, wait, do I have affiliate links with a few other software services such as SiteGround, Reclaim? Should I just do host read ads on my podcast that direct folks to use my affiliate link? I think the tricky part is, don't know if you can say they're a sponsor. Like I can't say this show is sponsored to you by Ecamm. Go to askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm. I think if I call them a sponsor and they're not a sponsor, there might be some funkiness there. I don't know if it's going to get you in trouble, but sponsor means somebody paid you money up front to talk about their product. Like Mark is a sponsor. Dan is a sponsor. They paid us money up front to talk about them. So when you treat someone like an affiliate link as a sponsor, there might be some wonkiness there. So that's where you could just go, hey, this week's featured product is Ecamm. Go to askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm. You're looking at it right now. That kind of thing without using the word sponsor. And then I think if it's an affiliate, due to the FTC, you have to say, oh, by the way, if you use that link, it helps support the show and blah, blah, blah. Because you can't, the FTC is woke up. They're kind of like, hey, wait a minute. There's a lot of people. I was listening to Tom Buck has a podcast, and there are straight up sponsors, or not sponsors. There are people, because he's a YouTuber, but he has a podcast. So I was like, oh, wow, Tom has a podcast. And he was explaining this, that there are companies that will go, hey, we're going to send you this thing to review on your YouTube channel because you have tons of people watching you. And if you could kind of keep it on the DL that, we gave this to you, that'd be great. Well, that's illegal. That's just straight up. That's not good. And so I was, as I'm listening, like, wow, people are really doing that. And it turns out, yeah, companies are really doing that. They're like, yeah, don't let people know we gave this to you. And I was like, yeah, that's not good. So the FTC has already said, if you are inflating your numbers, especially if you have sponsors, that's not good. But I don't know. Thoughts, Jim? Because I know you've talked about, I think you had HelloFresh for a while you used as a sponsor link. Yeah.
And they were affiliate. I think I tried this whole idea of sponsored by thing, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. You could say featured affiliate, type like, hey, this month we're featuring this affiliate link. I think it's actually good to let them know it's an affiliate as opposed to a sponsor. When it's affiliate, I think your listeners go, oh, I know what that means. That means if I follow the link, they get something out of it. As opposed to sponsor, you're kind of like, oh, their ads are just showing up on their page. They paid them in advance for it. So I actually think it's beneficial to let your listeners know that you have an affiliate relationship with them rather than having a sponsored relationship. And then Chris Nessie uses the term support for this episode comes from, yeah, you could say it. You could say it that way. Comes from HelloFresh. There are, like I said, I actually prefer to say affiliate, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a, although now that I say that, I do have a sponsor tab on my site at homegadgetgeeks.com, and I include the affiliates in there. I think I'm clear. The only one that's left at this point is Nespresso. I am not hunting down affiliate relationships just because it's just not what I'm doing right now. But it's a good question, Dave. I think it's a real, we've been sloppy as podcasters about, and the YouTubers I think are doing this all the time. They're saying that this episode, sponsored by whatever, there's a link down below and it's an affiliate link. And I don't know if anybody's going after them. Maybe are you thinking like the organization would say, "Hey, I didn't sponsor you. You just have an affiliate link." Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
if, how everybody's supposed to be brand safe. And if we said booger on this show, and we were sponsored,
Yeah.
maybe I don't think Mark would be like, hey, you said booger. I don't want podcastbranding.co associated with people who use the word booger, and Dan might say, did you say, feces on your show? That's not a brand safe word. So, that's the thing where if it's a true sponsor, they might be like, and in the event, if you say booger, you might lose, they might kick you out of their affiliate program. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
that's one of those things.
Randy makes a good point. You have an affiliate agreement. You and I were talking about Amazon last week, and you challenged me on something, and I'd read through the agreement pretty thoroughly to make sure I was doing what I was doing was fine. But it challenged me a little bit on that, so I went back into the affiliate agreement through Amazon. Boy, it reads like a legal document in every sense of it's super confusing. I wanted to drop it into AI and get a summary of it, kind of thing. Um, and I was like, okay, I was kind of okay, but kind of not. I'm going to make this a little clearer. I'm going to change this a little bit. So, that being said, make sure you are reading your agreements thoroughly to make sure you know what you're doing is okay based on the agreement.
Yeah, it's I interviewed the guy that makes Genius Link, which is a tool that helps you not get kicked out at Amazon. And I interviewed him on my Profit from Your Podcast show. And there are things that I thought I had them here. I guess I don't. Bad show notes, Dave. Oh, 9 reasons affiliates get banned from Amazon. So that was he has an article on this. And one of them is like putting affiliate links in your newsletter. And I was like, wait, what? And like, wow, enough with the pop-ups, kids. Jeez. Does he not have these as a list? One would think. Yes, cloaking links. So there's cloaking links. So that means if I go profitfromyourpodcast.com/book and that sends them to Amazon, that's nope, can't. You got to let them know they're going links and ebooks. That used to be a big money generator. So again, if they don't know it's an affiliate link, mentioning prices. This is one, like if you say, hey, the Samsung Q2U is on sale for $65. You should get one now. Affiliate link. They're not going to like that because Amazon changes their prices all the time. Using the star rating and reviews. So that's bad. Asking for a click or bookmark. So if you're like, hey, go to, askthepodcastcoach.com/Amazon and bookmark it, which was a great strategy because then when people would use their bookmark, anything they bought would be an affiliate thing. Well, Amazon was like, nope, sorry, can't do that either. Amazon really makes it kind of hard to use too. Not linking to products. So if you're just linking, I guess, to a page, I'd have to read this. I'll put a link to this article from Genius Link, but that's what they do. When you go to a Genius Link, if you go to supportthisShow.com/ the letter Q, the number 2, and U, you'll see where it's, well, here, let's just do that right now, shall we? And by the way, of course, does Genius Link have an affiliate program? Of course they do. SupportthisShow.com/Q2U. Send you over to my Genius Link. Yep. And this is what a Genius Link does. It's a picture of the microphone and then a link to Amazon, a link to Sweetwater, a link to B&H, and something called Adorama. And basically it says, note, commissions may be earned from the links above. And so you know right there that this is an affiliate link, and that's what Genius Link does to stop you from being breaking the rules with Amazon. But yeah, their terms of service is crazy nuts. That when you try to read it, no wonder, because I remember Jay Moore, the comedian, his son was little, I forget his name, but anyway, he would say, hey, if you want to support the so-and-so college fund, go over to the website, click on the Amazon link, and that got him kicked out. I got kicked out once because I just said support the show and put an Amazon button, and they're like, yeah, you can't do that. And I'm like, but it does. And I Amazon thinks differently than I do when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that's always a weird one, but you could, again, be careful when you say affiliate links. I think I'm with you. I think if I were to do this, I like Chris's thing, like this show is supported by, like that. The other thing you might do, and I finally built one. If you go to, what is my website? School of Podcast. I know it's under About, but I have a page of just affiliate links because people always say, hey, do you have an affiliate link? I'm going to sign up at Captivate. And instead of having to find it, I can go to, where is it, under About? Yeah, if you go under About on the School of Podcasting website, it turns out the website is schoolofpodcasting.com/affiliate links. And this is just here's equipment, here's editing software. And so now I have people that are like, oh, I just go to this website first if I'm going to buy anything. This little cross out thingy here just means that MouseFlow didn't load quick enough because I have a tool that looks for dead links. But, these are all things that I've either used, like here, Captivate. I don't know why I might turn off that plugin because that's making it look like that's a bad link, and it's not. So it's a long list, but it's all live streaming. And most of these, like Switchy, I love Switchy. Switchy is my kind of my own version of Bitly. And now, do I make a ton of money this? No, but pennies make dollars. I know Captivate, it's usually, somewhere in the tens of dollars. Podpage is at times a decent one, and we're still trying to figure out, is Dave still an affiliate now that I'm working for them? But you never know. My favorite was, I did a podcast about Jillian Michaels because she had a podcast and then quit, and people are looking for the Jillian Michaels podcast. She's a fitness trainer. So I made one, and then I just got lucky, and she came out with a book, and it was the first time she had narrated her own book, and it was on Audible, and I made $15 a person. And I said, hey, Jillian Michaels fans, her new book is out, and she actually read it, and I got a nice 4-figure affiliate check. Now, that was one check, and it lasted for 1 month, and it wasn't like the next month I got another 4. It was like, everybody bought it already. But, if you could do that every week, that adds up. Here, Jeff said, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Jeff says, I made a Notion database with all the things I use that shows specifically affiliates. It's easier to update than a website. You know what? I need to, not to switch gears, but I switched from Evernote to NoteJoy because it was cheaper than Evernote because, again, Bending Spoons, I think I was paying $60 and it was going to be $120 for Evernote. So I switched to NoteJoy, which was more expensive than Evernote used to be, but less expensive than Evernote was now. And for what I use it for, in theory, I should just use Notion because it's free. But Jim, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, that's fine. I interrupted as well. I just changed. So I had a tab at theaverageguy.tv that used to just say sponsor. And then it have all the anyone who sponsored the show plus the affiliates. And it was mostly affiliates. So to cover myself, I just changed the label and it just now says sponsor/affiliates. So that it covers me right in both cases. The Nespresso affiliate link that I have is the gift that just keeps giving. Somehow it's basically anytime I order $50 or more, I get $10 off. For every purchase that is made, I get one of those kind of things. And man, I think I must have earned a dozen or 2 dozen of those things. It never stops. I'm always surprised when I go make an espresso purchase and it automatically adds that for me on my purchase on the way out. And so it's been a handy little, that's from an affiliate standpoint. That's one of those things. I don't buy coffee. I mean, I buy it every other month from Nespresso. Make a $50 order, it takes $10 off. Like, that's been a really nice affiliate relationship to have with them. And it's on the site. We talked about it from time to time when it's appropriate. That's one of those kinds of things. I have Erin Lawrence on, and she's a gadget, she's a gadget blogger, YouTuber. And we always end up talking about Nespresso. So I say, head over to theaverageguy.tv/Nespresso. It makes sense then. For a while, I was bringing that in as a weekly. I was trying out the, hey, this month, the featured affiliate, I think I might have said sponsor, is Nespresso. So I don't know. So I made that change in real time here. It looks a lot better, and I think it's a little truer. And I also think I won't use the word sponsor going forward in those cases. I haven't done that in a while, but I think it's smart to say affiliate if they're an affiliate.
Yeah, speaking of affiliates, I'm podgagement.com/affiliates, and Daniel just revamped his program. So he's now earning 30%. So if you're a person that talks to podcasters and your audience would benefit from using Podgagement, then you might want to consider signing up for his program. Jeff was saying he calls it a toolbox that he speaks for. He says it's on my website. Then they get access to my welcome email. And so I went to Jeff's site, which is awesome. And I looked under services. I was like, toolbox. At least it's not on the front page. So maybe it's in his show notes or something like that. But I was like, But I like that idea of a toolbox. That's, and then just put the disclaimer at the top, because Amazon does want that at the top as well. But yeah, I've seen people really crush it with affiliates. If you have the right audience, it can really,
well,
take off.
I'm a user. I'm a user. Sounds like they're drugs.
Yeah.
It kind of is. I guess caffeine is technically a drug. I love my Nespresso. I have a Nespresso machine at home and at work. Whenever we're talking about, I still perk the coffee for this show. I could use Nespresso, but I perk it because I like perked coffee. But there's times when I want to make a latte, I use the Nespresso machine. There's times when I want just a cup of coffee instantly, I use the machine. So it makes sense for me because it's going to come up in conversation as we're talking on the show. And if somebody mentions it, I'm like, oh, hey, don't forget theaverageguy.tv/Nespresso. And if you are interested in having an espresso machine, you can use that affiliate link too. Dave, it reminded me, like, as I was going through these StreamYard replacements, you're an Ecamm, you have an Ecamm affiliate. So I have to before I go sign up for the free plan, I need to make sure I'm going through Dave's affiliate link so that you get credit for that. I wouldn't have used Ecamm if we weren't using it here, and I think it's important that I do that for you. So what would I use? Just to remind everyone, if I'm going to sign up for Ecamm, what do I use?
Right now, it's askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm, and Ecamm is ECAMM because it's good. I actually I went over to Jeff's site and in incognito because I think I'd been there once, but I know I've been there once before, many times before. And so when you go to Jeff's site, he has a pop-up for his toolbox, which then gets people on their website, on the email list. And now, and I know when we talk about with Amazon, and again, it's $6 a month for Genius Link. And the fact that I can now put links in an email and not have to worry about breaking Amazon's, terms or whatever. I'll pay $6 for that. And, it's weird because there are times when I will go into my Amazon associates to see, like, okay, what are people buying today? And it's weird because they'll buy a Samsung Q2U and a flat screen TV. And they're like, wait, what? Why did I get a $13 commission? Like, oh, they bought a $900 TV the size of my, house. So
is it a 48-hour cookie? Is that what I thought I was reading through the terms, and I think they tell you in there how long that survives past them making the initial purchase or something like that. So it is it's a good, be careful, read the terms.
Yeah. And about the times you understand them, they'll change them, which is great fun.
And they can change them at any moment without any recourse. They can just say, nope, this is the way we do it now. And you just have to say,
yeah. Remember how we used to pay you 7% on stuff? Yeah. We're going to drop that down to 4. Enjoy. Yeah, that's why to me, when it comes to podcast monetization, it's almost like a portfolio. You want to invest some in affiliates, you want to invest some in crowdfunding. You want to do this because when one goes down, hopefully the other one will go up. Gary says, I've used Dave Sweetwater link several times. Well, I appreciate that. And so Gary uses something called Opt-in Monster. That's a pop-up tool that I think I have on the School of Podcasting right now. It's a pretty cool tool. Another fun-filled, as I go over to my NoteJoy, which again, I probably am going to eventually switch to Notion. I'll have to look into that, see if they have some sort of transfer. What do I do now? This is for the new podcaster. It says, hello, everyone. I just finished editing the first episode of my podcast. I sent it to all my family to critique it, but then what? I want to publish it, but I'm worried I'll be shouting into the void. That seems to be, I think we should just all assume we're going to be shouting into the void. You know, it's kind of weird because people first, they worry that nobody's going to listen. And then once people start listening, they freak out because, oh my gosh, people are actually listening. It's a weird kind of transition. Does anyone else feel this way when they first began? I don't know. I just assumed nobody was going to listen. I don't know. And if that was, I don't know that I find that scary. I just assume, I don't know, Jim, did you? I just started and was like, oh, let's see what happens. And then it was like, oh, holy cow, I got 20 downloads. That's, and in 2005, that was amazing.
I studied for sure. I started as a guest host on another show. And so it wasn't my show and I didn't really worry about it. And I knew there were listeners because I had been a listener of that show and said, hey, I've got some things I want to say. If you need another voice, let me know. And so I did that show for maybe a year before I started my own. And then, so I kind of had a built-in audience already. Like I already knew there were going to be folks that would listen. I was listening to those listeners from the show I was currently on. And I thought, oh yeah, I mean, we'll create another tech show and somebody will listen to it for sure. I don't know. I've never worried about that, Dave. I mean, listen, some days I think I have 6 listeners because I get 2 people to email me and when something breaks, the same guy lets me know every time. But somehow there's a couple hundred to 1,000 downloads every time we put that out. I don't know. I guess I never worried about that. I just thought I'd do this and they'll come or they won't. Listen, I spent some time every Thursday when I record Home Gadget Geeks. I get done and I'm like, you know what? If that conversation was so enjoyable, Jay was on last month or last week. The conversation was just so enjoyable that I do it regardless. I mean, I do this with you. Well, we have an awesome chat room, and today's show. The value is in the chat room for sure. Like there's so much good conversation going on. But I do this with you. Even if we started just goofing off with no listeners, right? We're just goofing around. So yeah, I guess I don't worry about it too much. I hope that doesn't sound too altruistic, but that's genuinely the way I feel. Like it's like, no, I do it regardless. It's great that we have live folks, and it's great that we have a couple hundred or whatever listen to this on the podcast side of things. But yeah, no, I just like hanging out with you. Listen, I win regardless. I get to hang out with you for an hour and a half. I mean, who else gets to do that every week? Nobody.
And when I listen to people, well, and likewise, it's like, if there's nothing, I'm like, if nothing else, I get to hang out with Jim Collison. Yeah. And so when I listen to people who are now doing this for a living, the Danny Peñas, the Jordan Harbingers, they started out doing it for fun. Yeah. I think sometimes that added pressure of making money. And in case anyone is wondering, yes, Screaming into the Void, many podcasts already are using that as a name. I was like, that's a great name for a podcast. And I'm like, oh, somebody beat me to it. But yeah, I really think, especially when you first start out, if you're trying to make money, that can be the thing that's the one thing that's really interesting now with Podpage. When you get the person that says, hey, I've decided I'm not going to podcast anymore, I can go over and see how many episodes they have. It's scary how many times it's 6. That whole people don't get past, because if you're trying to make money and grow your audience at the same time, you now have two things to be depressed about. One, my audience isn't growing as fast as I want, and two, I'm not making a dime. Well, you're not making a dime because you don't have an audience yet. And so that's the one thing I kind of get worried sometimes. Gary has a fun-filled question here, and that is, he says, how do you, I thought I pinned this, maybe I didn't. He said he wanted to know, yes, would love to know how to get listeners to leave us a review. And number one, if you're using Podpage, of course, you can go to if you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/rate, that should, in theory, I've never used this link because I'm not a big review person, but yeah, it takes me right to a page where you can leave me a review in Apple Podcast, in Spotify, or in Podchaser if you want to. But you kind of have to ask. I know that sounds kind of a duh, but you could say, hey, I need some social proof that people are listening. If you do, could you do me a favor and go to mywebsite.com, make an easy to remember link. So whatever /review/rate, whatever. I do kind of cringe when I hear people go, I think there's ratethispodcast.com /something. I'm like, no, make it something you can control, because that website might go away. I hear a lot of people now talking about episodes.fm, which if let's just do live thing, we'll do it live. So if we go to episodes.fm, and then I type in Ask the Podcast Coach, survey says, there it is. And I click on it, and there are all the links. I mean, all the links. There's like 20 plus different ways. And I'm not going to click on anything, because if I go Castbox, what's that? And I click on that, the next time I go back to this site, because you have a URL at the top, it's going to think I want to listen in Castbox. Because, well, on one hand, it's a feature as long as you click on the thing you wanted first. But if you're just like, wait, I've never heard of this, and then it shows your episodes, and this is all RSS based. Yep. So, but to me, I'm like, I would love to copy these links and put them on my website. I'm kind of weird about that. Or just have a link. Like if you go to schoolofpodcast.com/follow, that's me using Podgagement from Daniel. If you go to if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/support, or not support, /subscribe, that's me using Daniel's WordPress plugin. So both of those I control, but when you send somebody off your website, you're potentially losing some SEO. Because if people start sharing your follow page on your domain, that's more backlinks that could boost your SEO. I'm not sure by how much, but it's something to think about. But I don't do much with ratings and reviews. I get them, but Jim, any ideas on how to get people?
Yeah, this gave me an idea. No, I think reviews are kind of silly, but some people find them very, very important. So if you're in that boat, keep asking for them. But you got to ask. You have to ask. But I kind of thought, I was thinking, it's been a while since I asked. I asked a while back, hey, I'm doing some things. It'd be great. It would help me if you would put some reviews in. It just would. I put a new widget on our site, and I'm just like, for new people coming to the site, there'd be some social proof there. I'm bringing in your comments. But I was thinking, it'd be funny, like for my audience, do a review, but put in a funny joke. Like, let's get some dad jokes going out in the reviews, because I don't really care about them for the most part. But it may be fun to get some engagement in that way and see what kind of funny jokes we could get in the reviews. Just dad jokes. Just dad jokes. Okay, it's unique enough for my audience, because my audience is honestly a bunch of dads. They're just like me. They're a bunch of dads. So to say, hey, look, we're looking for the funniest and the most unique dad jokes, throw them in the reviews. You don't need to leave a comment about the show. Let's just do that. But that may generate something. I mean, for you figure out what would motivate your listener to be unique enough, not just to leave a review. What could you do with those reviews? That might be fun and interesting. All of a sudden, if a bunch of dad jokes showed up in the review section, that may be novel enough that some people are like, oh, a dad joke. I got a good dad joke. I'll leave a dad joke, right? And it just kind of creates, again, I don't think those reviews do much, but it would be fun engagement. You can read them on the show, get some engagement that way. So I may write that down. I may try that starting next week. Do it early in the show and just say, hey, we're collecting dad jokes in our reviews on the various podcast platforms. Take a second when you have a moment. I want to hear what your favorite dad joke is. Throw that in the review. Don't send it to me via email. Put it in the review. And I don't know. Maybe that would work out. Well, you've got some super chats coming in, Dave.
We do have super chats coming in. Holy cow. So DR, thank you so much. Wait a minute. If I remember right, Jim, I think we can make it rain. Survey says. Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that fun?
Nice.
And Jeff C., thank you so much for the $20 super chat. And of course, if you're listening to this later, you can still do that. It doesn't have to be live, but thank you folks for your support. Deeply appreciate that. And I'm looking at, I thought it was on, I know Daniel has a thing. If you go to podgate.com, I know he has an email. If just go to podgagement.com and reach out to Daniel or the Audacity to Podcast. I know he has, I think, an email thing on how to get more reviews. But Podgagement has the tool where you can get them from all, I think it's 127, 137. It's a lot of countries, which if you ever, I don't know that you could. You used to be able to do that in iTunes where you could switch the country and then look at your reviews. And I don't know in Apple Podcasts if you can switch countries anymore. You could do that in iTunes, but I don't know about Apple Podcasts. So, but holy cow, look at the time. Man, that went quick. And here's the fun thing. That was fun. Just hanging out, talking podcasting, answering questions.
Yeah,
always
a ton of fun.
Always a good way to start the day. Thank you to all the awesome people in the chat room. And it really is, to me, that's half the fun. Yes, I get to hang out with Jim Cullison. I also get to hang out with, I have no idea how many people are in the chat room today because I'm not on YouTube. And I'm sure it shows it somewhere in Ecamm. I see we had
24 watching live. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see we had 274 comments today.
Oh, comments. Yeah. A lot. These guys do a great job. Listen, I learn every week from you guys as well. So I appreciate I'll echo what you just said, Dave. It'd be fun just the two of us, but we're better when we're all together. And so pretty great that you guys have given me a lot of help and a lot of great ideas as well.
Yeah. Uncle Marv says we topped out at 33. So It's a magic number, and so that's very cool. Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Yeah, I mentioned it twice. I pimped it twice already, but Jay Franzi joins me this week for 621. We spend a little bit of time catching up with him. I do some listener emails. We spend a little time talking about crypto at the end. Don't be afraid of that. It's an easy conversation and super fun. If you want to check it out, it's posted today, homegadgetgeeks.com.
There you go. On the School of Podcasting, somebody asked, how do I go about outsourcing my podcast and what should I outsource? And so I made a rather long list of all the things you do when you do a podcast. And spoiler alert, outsource the stuff you don't like to do. But the list was kind of insane when I actually looked at it. So thanks to everyone. We will see you next week with another fun-filled episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.